Live from the apocalypse. Welcome to the best part of your week. This is State of the Game. I am your host, Walking on Sunshine. I am Dano. Yeah, I mean, I have a co-host every week, comes to this wonderful place with me, and I'm glad because he would be roughing everyone up if he wasn't. So I appreciate knocking noggins and doing your thing. So
no, thank you, man.
Thank you for being here. Yes, we're gonna link up. I appreciate you being here, and this is a discussion I've been talking about for months. This topic, because and I had to have certain people here, and this is great that we got who we wanted. Our name is good enough in the streets now that we can actually get the people we want. It's cool. So we have, scorching hot, flaming hot producer right now, child actor, Bell the Ball. I'm very excited to have you with us.
Excited to be here. Even if I can't match the exciting tones of your delivery, I promise I'm excited.
Child actor. I'm going to be able to tell my grandchildren I talk to child actors.
You are able to tell them that. They are not going to be able to understand what that means, but you can tell them that.
So a linchpin here, like someone that I've bookmarked wanting to talk to since Fatboy Sharif told me to listen to Stalin Bollywood. Rhys Langston is a true. What? Did I mess it up?
Rhys Langston.
Rhys Langston. I
got it right the first time before you officially announced the name.
I'm terrible at pronouncing everything.
Good.
Rhys Langston. So I appreciate you being here. One of we've talked about different types of creators here, and you are one of those infinite variable MCs, in my opinion. One of those people who is rarely doing the same thing. If you're a fan of Rhys Langston, you better be prepared for the next one being totally different. And that's a rare space where the audience knows that, right? Where like this is what it is. And child actor has also worked with a number of those types, so that's dope as well. The conversation here is about, do hip hop lyrics need to make sense to you, right? So, and the you is a wide spectrum here, right? It's everybody involved. But I wanted to give a preface before we launch in, right? I just wanted to get out in the audience. This is not me putting a topic out saying the audience is dumb and the audience is not paying enough attention to the advanced nature of lyricism. I think this is the smartest the hip hop audience has been in my life. By a lot, right? The hip hop audience is very informed. They know what's going on. They know who did it. They dig for the meanings like I've never seen before. But that comes with its own set of problems. Because if they don't have the meaning immediately, there's a frustration that sets in. And I just wanted to kind of continue this conversation and say that this is not against anyone. This is not accusing anyone. This is, how should we think of this? I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense, Ken?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, yeah, and Rhys, one of the most interesting things for you, I was re-listening to Stalin Bollywood and then Grapefruit Radio, right? And Stalin Bollywood is pretty punch you in the face music, right? That is it's not something you can get lost and confused You know, you listen to the Pope is an unrepentant rapist, and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, unfortunately, I made that decision. Yes,
But Grapefruit Radio was much more. I don't know. It felt much more Beat Generation, hodgepodge of lyrics that pull meaning from each other. Two completely different lyrical landscapes. Am I right about that?
Yes, yes, you are. I mean, you can keep going. I have, I have a bit of an explanation, a bit of contextual kind of framing for that, if whenever you want that.
Yeah, no, I am not going to monologue the thing. So I'm just going to say, I just wanted to set you up and say, what was that transition like for you? What were you trying to do?
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because there was actually when Grapefruit Radio came out, I was fortunate enough to get like an interview with Stereo Gum about that. And I kind of talked about how, obviously the topics are maybe radically progressive in style in Bollywood, but the actual intent behind it was a little reactionary on my part because I had been feeling from a lot of, anyone from like random people listening to the music to people booking shows out in LA to, friends I'd show things to that like, there was this idea that I couldn't make sense. I couldn't be direct.
Right.
I hadn't, or not, I had no capacity, but like people couldn't conceive of me just spelling things out. And so Stalin Bollywood was, in addition to, me just always being kind of a fan of a lot more like kind of anarchist punk music aesthetically as well as ideologically. It was my ability to kind of say like, fuck it, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, I don't know if I can curse on here.
No, go for it.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to kind of try and forcefully transcend or get myself out of this pigeonholing that rightfully and maybe somewhat I was trying to get ahead of this, you're too abstract for your own good or something like that, or there was no kind of methodology to the fuzziness of the meaning. And then Grapefruit Radio was, getting back to the elemental, just kind of, I felt like I had that done. I had that demon exercised out of me. And really just like a lot of that record was me in one sitting writing everything out, not really editing as much as I normally do, and then recording it. So in that way, yeah, it was really just like, I'm just gonna let it fly. So that's kind of, there's a little bit before that, and there's obviously some after that's come out, but I feel like that junction right there is the interesting thing that you point out, for sure. If that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, sorry, I'm gonna take over the interviewing now.
Do it.
I just had to mention that just like one thing you said, like just I've been thinking about a lot lately is like how you're talking about listeners saying like you don't have the ability to be clear or something. It's like just generation after generation, there's always going to be people that take artist decisions as like, oh, this is the only thing they can do. I mean, I just always think about like there were people that said like, oh, Coltrane can't swing. Like, I mean, that's like one thing I always tell myself is like whenever someone's like, oh, these producers are working with samples because they don't know how to play real music. And like, yeah, that's just something. It's hard to not pay attention to it because it's so annoying. But
Yeah.
I try to just not react to it. But yeah, I feel you on that.
It's a very important point, Kay, that like our reactions in the moment are usually quite bad. Like quite bad. Like did I send you, Kay, the Rolling Stone review of Ziggy Stardust? Where they were like, what a disappointment. Like, ooh, what a whack album. You know, he's no Lou Reed. Like, it was like real nutty. And you can find any number of albums like that. Any number of classic albums that were destroyed in the moment by everyone who didn't get it. Yeah, it's a great point. Okay, what were you gonna say?
No, I mean, I agree. People. It's weird. It's interesting because people's initial reaction to great works and challenging works is usually wrong. It's almost like their instinct, like, and you know, your instincts are based on past experiences. So when you're exposed to something new, your instincts are not calibrated to be able to comprehend what's in front of you yet.
Right. And so Rhys had to be here because this is something that's going to follow for the rest of your career, right? People are going to be asking you what this stuff means. It's just
there's a guy in the comments section of one website that hates me. It's amazing. So he's gonna follow me for sure.
it's just much easier to hear Ray Sremin for the first time and be like, I get this. This is fun. You know, like
no flex zone.
Nothing against Ray Sremin, it's great. But I would say
But I mean, but on terms of like more accessible things, everyone hated Young Thug when he first came out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now like there's a million clones, you know? It's crazy.
Very true.
Yep. Young Thug's white California surfer girl voice was revolutionary. Absolutely revolutionary. And we were all just like, wow, that's cool. But yeah, no, it was something else. But and every time there's an innovation, there's definitely problems with it. But Child Actor had to be here because who are on the other side of this, right? You produced the greatest first song in Elucid's history of spelling, and
a lot of qualifiers, but okay.
This is just my opinion. It does not, but a lot of people's opinion, to be fair. But yeah, I told Bessie was at the absolute center of a storm around lyricists last year. Like there were people who that album is really important to them. That album connects so deeply to them.
Rightly so.
And there's people who are like, what in the ever loving fuck is this? What does this mean? Does this mean anything? And were you feeling that? Were you hearing that? Were you around for that? Were you drunk?
Well, all right. First off, I'm gonna say like, I am not a lyrical expert. I'm here with a gun to my head. You convinced me to come on here. I'm here as the layperson that doesn't know anything. Okay, I'm not like totally dumb, but like I don't really consider myself like an authority in any way. So my comments are going to be from the perspective of someone that is not a lyricist that listens. But I always, the beat is going to hit me first. I'm really into beats. So I'm just going to hear the whole sound first. I'm going to hear the voice as an instrument first. And then later I'm going to unpack what's there. Usually I might like when it comes to Elucid, I mean, he's to me, like the perfect person to talk about from the musical side of how his voice is like an instrument. And that's the way his cadence will work too. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I'm really aware of what people say about Elucid's lyrics on the whole spectrum. I think it's definitely a good example because it doesn't, I think what people love and maybe the people who don't get it don't love is you have to listen to it multiple times to understand what's there. You might even have to read it. And I myself, especially producing it and doing post-production after he sends demos, I hear it, some of those I've heard dozens of times at least. And even now, like, stuff will hit me that's never hit me before, and I'll make connections that I never made before. And I personally like that. I really like getting more and more out of something over time. I think it's at odds with the way a lot of people listen to music, especially in hip hop, which has this reputation for being, all right, what's the next flavor of the week? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Oh, you just dropped. Okay, what are you gonna drop next month? And which is also something I love about it. I like that.
Yep.
But man, when something can break that cycle of like just release after release and reward repeat listens, I think it means so much more now. And yeah, Elucid you're gonna have to invest in unless you want to get like that surface experience, because he's not gonna be, he drops quotables.
Yeah.
He has little one-liners and that really stick with you. But to me, that's, for some rappers, that's like their pinnacle, is like those little nuggets. That's like, oh yeah, that was a great line. But for him, like, he goes real deep and poetic and spiritual, and yeah, we're getting to beyond where I feel qualified to comment. But
no, it's I can give you a little bit how I feel about it, to bolster your point. Like, one of the things that changes, like, and that's one of the things that frustrates people about Elucid, is that it's not clearly word salad. If it was word salad, people would just dismiss it, right?
Unless you're Ghostface.
Huh? What'd you say?
Unless you're Ghostface on Supreme Clientele, but yeah.
Yeah, Nutmeg. Yeah.
That was going to be one of my references.
Nutmeg. We'll talk.
Yes,
Nutmeg.
I got it first.
But if you are like a rapper making random references, a lot of times people will just call that out and dismiss it, or like put you to the side and be like, "This is some avant-garde shit." But like with Elucid, the chanting, the ability to chant and find the soul of an image. And we interviewed Elucid on I Told Bessie, and one of the things that kept coming up, Kay, you remember, was these highly specific moments and examples, right? This is where the church was located. This is how the pews, right? And it was all in the bars, and he was chanting this highly personal, intensely vivid imagery that just connects deeply to the right person.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing I love about his example is there's a lot of ways to be experimental or like abstract, however you want to use those terms.
Yep.
But I think that he and a lot of people in that sphere that I admire are not just off on some like, all right, I'm gonna be out in my own world, like just being experimental for the sake of being weird or something.
Yeah.
Because I witness some things that feel like that to me, where there aren't a lot of stakes. Like, just if you just do the craziest sounding thing, and there's no stakes to it, then it doesn't hit me as hard as like people like Elucid, who are like, I'm gonna make something really unusual and idiosyncratic, but it's gonna be dope. You're gonna not need to understand what I mean, and you can feel it and like get something out of it. Like that to me, that tension where you have that trust that you might not understand a lot of it, but what you do understand makes you feel like, okay, when I'm hearing something I don't understand, I can trust that there's something there. I can come back to it later. I think that's important.
How do you feel about that, Rhys? There's a real point where I realized and thought, oh, well, I think what's important for me is to know that I'm on a journey somewhere and I'm not being fucked with. That like, if you're just fucking with me, I don't necessarily want to be fucked. I want this to be, I want to be able to trust you that you know what's going on. You know, is that a real thing, or is that not fair for the audience to put on the artist?
I mean, I think so. I think, you know, you're not, it's not a live performance. It's something that's recorded and something that has been constructed. Obviously, you don't want to see the scaffolding as much,
Right.
in that case. But I think that's, you know, Elucid's a very interesting example just in terms of intensity, in terms of a visceral feeling of being spoken to, that some people on that level might actually not like just because of vocal tone, which is a very interesting thing about rap, is that, you know, the timbre of the voice is, I wouldn't say it's unadulterated, but it's less adulterated than maybe a singing voice is. And it is very much so like something that can be immovable. You do get people like Danny Brown who clearly can modulate. I think I'm one of those people too who can modulate, you know, my voice in a lot of different directions. But I think there is, you know, forgive me if I'm like trying to sound too smart by using words, just to make points sound stronger than they are. But I think there is a slippage that's very interesting when it comes to going the distance, going there with an artist, in terms of it not being an entirely literary page-based endeavor, is that you do have, you know, if something doesn't quite connect literally, you do have that other limb of musicality and sound to grasp or to join, and carry you forward onto the next thing. I mean, that's oftentimes when something I write or something I enjoy is very rewarding, is when it can be certain intervals, right? It doesn't have to be as regular, but say every 4 bars or every 15 seconds, every 30 seconds, there's something that there's something that shifts me and winds me through. It can be like a switchback. It can just be, you know, normal turns or whatever. I think someone like Elucid does that really interestingly. I mean, it can oftentimes be staccato, a lot more dense than that. The density, I think, can scare people off a lot. But I think that's really what's very compelling about experimental word heavy rap music, is that there are all these little ways that you can use the format, the medium of time, and dotting it maybe with, if that's a quotable, if that's a certain syllabic pattern, if that's a certain way that the loop turns around on this part. I don't know if I'm quite answering the question or if I'm just making it.
I think you're getting to a really important point.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's this mixture. It isn't inherently a kind of more multidisciplinary experience and consideration from the artist when they're working through it. So that's really how I feel. I think, you know, it's cool that, you know, we're talking through, you know, this kind of example, because I feel like it's cool that art like this, you know, like Elucid's and like, you know, artists associated with him would probably be considered purist art, and it's circulating. It's still circulating, and people are receiving it, and people are enjoying it aesthetically, not just for an ideological adherence, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, just to jump on that point about, I think that I also like that music is enjoyed in the same context as so many different other types of lyricism, you know, like it's not all just like you only listen to Elucid if you like experimental rap only. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to be into punchline rappers, you're going to be into you know, crime rappers, whatever, Griselda, like that all can be like, you know, and you're gonna expect different things from different genres. I mean, like Elucid can definitely make me laugh, but I'm not like waiting for the next time to laugh when I'm listening to his music. But like Open Mike Eagle, hey, I'm gonna want to laugh sometimes on a Mike Eagle record. So yeah. And also like on an Elucid record, I'm gonna want to have some spiritual or poetic or you know some third eye kind of mystical feeling that I can't put my finger on. But I don't know, Mike Eagle record, I'm gonna want to be impressed with how many syllables he can rhyme and still make sense. And those are not, you know, those are both valid and both fun and both enjoyable and artistic in their own ways. So
Yeah, what me and Cave talked about for a while is realigning the definition of lyricism under the word interesting. And Rhys said interesting a bunch. Interesting is important, right? Because, and I think where I started thinking about this child actor was Currency's mixtape run back in the day, right? Like, because I realized, I'm like, Currency's not like dropping knowledge on. Currency's not, you know, crazy word choice, but like you said, every 15 seconds, all of a sudden, I'm in Monaco watching the sunrise, you know, licking a popsicle. I'm like, holy shit. You know, like it was interesting. Interesting things were always happening. And I think that matters, right? Move the crowd, you know.
yeah, I mean that's like a vibe thing, like, and also a narrative thing, branding thing. Like, yeah, Currency just like, yeah, his form of those little interesting moments is like how, all right, how chilled out am I in this moment in a different way that I was chilled out from the last moment that. But yeah,
someone like Rock Marciano kind of takes that, you know, from a less bouncy perspective to more like airy kind of reclining matter.
oh yeah, and for someone like Rock Marciano, I can like tune in at any point and get something that I love out of the song, like because he's like a really kind of microscopic writer where it's just like this idea, this idea, this idea, or like Doom-esque where just these couplets and just like it. I mean, he can, you know, he can string together a long topic, but I'm gonna enjoy all the little touches that go in there.
And I have to say, like, I know Rock is one of the best, and he's one of my favorite rappers ever. But I have to admit, when Rock got big, there was a debate with me and my people about these are just fancy ass word games, like just fancy word puzzles. Like, what is this? And then it came to a point where we all decided these are some good ass word puzzles, dude. I don't care. Like, I'm running with this, you know? And obviously, lyricism's changed over the years. And, you know, this last out, Elephant Man's Bones, really did, you know, dig into more tones of dark shit and sad shit and personal kind of feelings. But yeah, at its base, like, it's, you know, Rosebud's Revenge is incredible word games. But that it's not the same. Even as somebody, you know, who I thought about a bunch during this, just listening to a bunch of people. I thought about Young Morpheus. Young Morpheus is someone that has diehard fans, and I'm one of them. You know, and I was thinking about why do we love Young Morpheus so much? The reason is it's always a search for the truth. Like, whatever it is, it's a very conversational journey through things in life that are setting Young Morpheus off in a positive or negative direction. So it is always, you always feel like the truth is right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to again what we expect from genres. It's like I mean, just back to your point about Rock Marciano, like the question of whether or not to respect him lyrically. It's like what it just depends on what you like. I mean, he's really good at what he does. I mean, that's an understatement. It's just like certain actors of like action movies or comedies are just not going to get a chance to get an Oscar because those categories don't like have their Oscar nomination and they're not considered as prestigious, but it doesn't make them any less valid.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a large thing that's very interesting is that I think about because of literary inclinations. I do a lot of page-based writing. You know, one of my books that I put out, one of my projects I put out with a book that was basically like writing like a rapper in an essay, fucking with academic language, trying to lampoon it, you know? And a lot of the things that, you know, I think about are, it's a lot harder, I think, particularly, or it's just a lot more, it sounds nerdy as soon as you discuss it, I should say. Syntax, you know, a particular people's syntax really, I think, affects how comprehensible people assume something is. There are a lot of I'm one of these people. There are a lot of other rappers that I like. I think, you know, rock fits into this where there might not be a subject or a predicate in a million words strung together, but it is giving you still a picture and an image. And it's not necessarily subject, predicate, direct object, indirect object, you know, that like that dependent clause, independent clause, or whatever. And therefore, like, even if, you know, people aren't consciously listening to that as people who speak the language fluently, we do feel that. We feel the disruption of nonlinear word formations and stuff like that. And I think that like comprehensibility, another word, like it makes it, to some people, makes it like illegible sometimes too. I think like illegibility is probably a lot easier to think about as like someone who doesn't listen to rap at all and they're like, I just can't, too many words at once. But I think that there's a gradient in that where it's like there are some listeners who do not take on that load as easily, or do not take on like more different types of, you know, sentence formation as easily. And that's you know, I think that actually is, as much as it is a technical thing, it is an aesthetic feeling. And because that's a conversation that is just hard to have with someone who doesn't want to talk about syntax or even consciously thinks about that. You know, having a rap debate about that in rap is like probably completely anomalous. But I think that's something that, like, you know, I think about a lot. I think about, this actually does make a lot of sense, but that it's non-linear, and it's if you write it out, that wouldn't make sense on paper. You know, not in stanza form, like written, you know, margins and shit. So
yeah, no, there's like an active argument on hip hop Twitter about who's really hitting pockets and who's not, you know.
Well, that's another thing that's like the Coltrane can't swing. It's like the new version of that is like can't rap on beat.
Yeah, yeah. When Armand Hammer dropped Haram and it got a new audience because it was Alchemist and it was just a new level, like there were a lot of people who are like, this isn't rap, you know, because they just, as you said, you can customize yourself into a corner, right? Where all you listen to is Ito, Ransom, Conway, boom, 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 right? And like all you listen to is this one thing. So you're over in the corner of the grocery store, you eat cereal every day for breakfast, and you're like, how are these people eating bagels, muffins? You know, you're like mad at them because they don't eat cereal every day like you, and it's a strange way to be. Probably not healthy, but I don't know. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I loved that. I think honestly, they probably loved that. I think that's a side effect of Alchemist's fan base too. I mean, like, you know, legend, incredible producer. You don't need to do much on his beats. Like, you can really just almost autopilot through his beats and just do something unobtrusive, and it's going to be a dope song because the beats are incredible. Arm & Hammer's not going to do that, and I think I personally know some people that just pissed off. Like, they're like, yeah, I like the beats, but and if you've never heard that, I think that was the other thing is, like, a lot of you can be an Alchemist fan and have no idea that this whole subgenre exists, even though he's constantly championing it. So I think that was an incredible move for him to go there, and also to not have them come to him stylistically. Like, he really, you know, went over to theirs. I know he made a lot of those custom for them. So
yeah, it was a true experiment. It was a true meeting between those two forces. And the other, we had to talk Child Actor because you're also a part of a big deal this year with you produced for Serengeti the Ajay 2.
I'm glad you think that's a big deal.
It's one of the
your grandkids aren't going to know about that one either.
It's one of the best like narrative pieces of lyricism that's come out this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, that album almost didn't come out. I'm so glad it did. Serengeti is just like humble to a fault, really. Like, he was like, yeah, let's just make something just for us. Like, he's so in his head about it. He's like, you know, is this something that only we're gonna like? Yes, so it started out as the super limited project. Almost never came on streaming. I'm glad it's on streaming now too. But yeah, it's, and I think that he really only wanted people who really are into it, you know, to seek it out. He doesn't want to be bothering you with this. It's the opposite of the Alchemist Arm & Hammer thing. Is like, he wants you to, like, you know, really be a fan and have that deep relationship with it rather than trying to, you know, get more followers or something. But yeah, I think I love, I mean, God, when he's inspired, you can't fuck with him. I mean, it's just a one of a kind thing.
No. And if you chart those two albums, right? I Told Bessie and Ajay 2, I think you expose a lot of the blind spots with the audience, because the same people who would say, why is Elucid so like mystifying in this stuff, and can I not get a linear meaning? They're not gonna lock in for a whole ass story album. Like, that's not, they don't want.
I don't know which is harder to get initiated to, honestly. Like, because the Getty album is like, it's all laid out there. Like, you can find everything there. You don't have to guess, but you have to piece it together.
Right, you got to follow the story. You got to watch the whole movie. You know, like it's, and that's a lot of times people want to be able to tune in and tune out, but know that it's a story of some sort. It's a thing.
I think it's so rewarding if you do, though. I mean, for Getty, the reward of that album. First of all, that album, I think, is a real, just the feeling of the album is special. Yep. Just the sound of it, I think, the sound of his voice, that I feel like we're in this guy's head. We're in Ajay's head, and it's sometimes not comfortable. But it's so rewarding to get that story. It's funny, it's tragic, it's got everything. I mean, it could. Yeah, I mean, he could be writing miniseries and stuff. I mean, yeah.
Shout out to you, the Be Brilliant jingle and rap.
I didn't do that. That is Andrew Broder, aka Fawn. He did all the Be Brilliant tanning related stuff, and they're delightful. Yeah.
They are awesome. So yeah, but how do you, Reese, how do you feel story rap figures into this in terms of when you get a tight concept album, you might lose fans, like, because not everybody wants to go into a tight concept
That's true. Or that's a possibility. I know that you is probably rhetorical. It's not me. But
album. Sure. Yep.
yeah. I don't know. I think that's something, if we want to, bring it back to like kind of the most discussed people right now. I mean, that's something that I think Woods has beaten both kind of non-linear and linear, in the sense that there's these like flashes and connections of flashes and little bits of scenes that are disconnected or connected. I think he tweeted something recently. I don't like I follow like too heavily on Twitter, but he tweeted something recently about the Falling Out the Sky song, and then this song, I forget what it was, from Today I Wrote Nothing, the 2015 album. And he said, those two verses on those two songs are from the same story. And I thought that was crazy, just to think about, having a kind of fragmented narrative over such a long span of time. I personally do find like that I am personally very open-minded. So if an artist does a heel turn, or like turns quickly, flips it a little bit, if they do it well, or if I can tell that there was care put into it. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously I'm like everyone else. Like, sometimes shit doesn't hit me, and then it hits me 2 years later, and I'm cursing myself for not understanding it. I think, like, I can't say I do this all the time, or have this capacity all the time, but if I can hear, I think if people can hear, not I can hear, but people can hear that there's like the same level of craft that is put into, or care that's put into the disconnection, or the seemingly disconnected, more abstract expressionist versus the realist, image of something. I think it's great. I think there's someone like, personally, someone like Kendrick Lamar is a perfect example, in the sense that, I don't know, I thought his recent album was great literarily, but it was a little overwritten. Like, it had it ran over the margins in a lot of ways that like reminded me of like why I don't like Eminem a lot, because he's very inspired by Eminem. But an album like Good Kid, Mad City had these really big, these really strong narrative chunks. So I think he did more of an expressionist feel, kind of manic expressionist project this time around. Good for him for growing and being vulnerable. Like, that shit's dope anyways. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, that's another example where, things didn't resonate with me, but I think the more I listened to that, as much as like, might not stylistically and linguistically be my favorite project, I see that it had as much care put into it. That also could just be because it's a major label album and there's 100 people on it. But I think that's an example I can think about recently.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Kay, what do you think about all this?
I mean, it's funny because the word craft is like, I'm writing down notes, and that's something that like I have in my notes. For me, like, I view hip hop as a craft. And this is just my opinion. And the lyricists are craftsmen to me. So what I want from my craftsmen is, I want to see that they have an understanding from the rules. An understanding of the rules of the craft. And if I trust their understanding and mastery of the rules, then I will go along if they break the rules. So like, you know, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say a craftsman makes a chair. If I see that you've made like a great chair, let's say that your next chair, you kind of, you know, play around with the form, like you decide to really experiment. I'm willing to go with that because I know that you understand how to make a chair. So if I don't think, or I don't trust your understanding, and I don't think that you have a respect for the craft, I'm not going to really appreciate and rock with your product.
And I think that's what, like, to your point, Ken, I think that's what you have to do if you're like in the experimental artist lane, right? If you're Fat Boy Sharif, if you're Billy Woods, you have to have buy-in from your audience. It's like, I believe it. I'm going to hit the pre-order. I don't care how real the single sound, you know?
And for me, it's like, as I said, I don't mind rules being broken. I just want them to be broken intelligently and not random. So you can break rules, like, you know, that's how things evolve. But I don't like, and this goes back to what he was saying about the care put into it. Don't just break the rules happenstance, like, oh, by accident. If you're gonna break rules, break them intelligently, so that I can see that they were not broken by just sheer you not really investing the energy into the craft.
Or have it organized enough around the accidents that the accidents fall into something well. That's what I always like too.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't know what's what.
Okay, I would be interested to hear your thoughts. I don't know if you've heard House of Disorder yet, with Steel Tip Dove and Nosage.
No, I did write that down.
One of my favorite albums of this year. It's so fun, and Nosage yells these incredibly interesting bursts of things, but it's not. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a conventional lyricist talking to you. And so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, because that album is beautiful to me. But one of the things this is one of the reasons I wanted Child Actor here is because at the end of the day, you can call people whatever you want to, but the song's got to get done. And if the song is great and that person helped make the song great, they're part of the winning team. Like, that's it, you know? And so whether you consider someone like Nosage a lyricist or a singer or whatever, that album's dope, and that's what it is, you know. As a tool, he was used correctly. So, yeah,
I mean, I would say I love Nosage. I mean, just to your point of, like, you know, getting the song done. I mean, it's, you know, the lyrics are obviously on the shoulders of the rapper. You know, I'm gonna make a bunch of beats, and they're gonna pick whatever resonates with them. And they're often gonna rap about things that I would have never thought about. I mean, that they're gonna tell their story. But yeah, it does put me in a weird place, usually a place of pride, where now I'm associated with these lyrics, and I have to get my own understanding of what's going on in there. I've worked a bit, kind of a lot with Sharif too, and he. So just to, I think he's naturally, and I think he also sees this as his lane. He is going to go places that a lot of people are not going to go. He's going to be the one to you know, rap on the beats that no one else is going to pick, which as a producer can be really exciting, but can also feel like a this deep undertow, like I can get sucked into that world and be starting to just make beats of pots and pans and yeah. And so again, it's like I like that tension. I like if I'm gonna work with Sharif, first of all, everything he puts out is exciting to me. But I'm gonna feel like with the sound, like when I decide what beats I'm gonna send to a particular rapper, I got like a million beats. So like I don't want to just send a bunch of random ones necessarily. I want to think like, okay, what's gonna work well with their lyrical or their cadence or their timbral approach. And I might even leave some off that I know that they would love, because I might not want to take them in that comfortable direction necessarily. So yeah, I mean that I think when a rapper has a really strong voice and strong habits, there's that push and pull of like I mean, for me, I always want to imagine people in like there's their comfort zone, and then there's like that place where you can imagine they can go. And yeah, it's all about what the sounds of the beat are going to bring out in their voice and their thoughts, and take them to places that inspire them. Yeah.
And I think that's why producers love working with Sharif, is they can throw the kitchen sink at Sharif.
It's
right?
dangerous because you throw the kitchen sink at him, he will rap over the kitchen sink for sure.
Yep.
And he'll make it.
And it goes back to effort, because you don't just wake up and rap to those types of beats. Like I remember when we were talking with him, he'll say like he'll sit with something until he figures it out.
He'll not just sit with it; he will sleep with it.
Yes.
And loop it as he sleeps.
Yep.
I mean and until he notices every little wrinkle in that beat, and sometimes he will notice every little wrinkle in that beat and then just ignore it. Right. And then sometimes he'll notice every little wrinkle in that beat and really like, wow, the timing is immaculate. Like, how did he grasp what was there? But
that's right. So it's not like he's just hearing the beat and like just snapping like, okay, I got it. He has put in, like, as we said, he's put in his 10,000 hours of practice, so that when he gets like something like that, he can figure that puzzle out, because he's put in that work to his craft, that he's able to handle high level and high difficulty beats like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and it's the antithesis what Rhys was talking about earlier, which is such a great point about the syntax, right? And about like how syntax interacts with flow and delivery. And so there are some rappers where I'm in a lot of discords, I'm talking to people and they're just like, so-and-so is always doing this boop, boop, boop flow. Like, I know how all that shit's going to go. Once I hear the first word, I know what the sixth word is, right? Boop, 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 going there. But like, and for some people, that's comfortable. That's like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to get what I ordered. For some people, they're like, damn, fuck on that shit. Like, I need some other. And so experimental artists are necessary because they push the boundaries, and they live outside that, boop, boop, boop flow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rhys, I want to know what you were going to say about Nutmeg, actually.
We could do that. That's a good deal.
Ghostface
Nutmeg.
What were you going to say about Nutmeg before I?
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, that kind of is kind of similar to a response, of like what Dan was just talking about, where I think sometimes, there is grace extended to people who, I mean, I have this theory that like rap is as much response to ideology as it is an ideology itself. And that comes with a lot of baggage, that comes with a lot of different points of like, cutting in. But I feel like someone like Ghostface, and when I say this, I'm not speaking to any like respectability politics or anything like that, but when Ghostface, goes on his abstract moods and tangents and stuff like that, he still is hitting certain goal points and going over certain expected hurdles, like talking about robbing people, drugs, guns. Not that that's bad. I'm just saying that that provides a grounding for people to be able to intake it easier. I think a lot of people like Elucid, a lot of people like Open Mike Eagle, someone, even while like someone as, crazy as like maybe even Divine Styler or something, or you're going further. Their point of center is so off in terms of just the sketching of reality, that those little dots of like familiar or expected topics make it feel even more experimental than it is. Make it feel more experimental, I should say.
Right.
And that's what I find interesting is it's like, I think in that same vein, what Young Thug does and what Ghostface does is a little bit similar in the sense that maybe not technically, but in terms of conceptually, they're speaking around, they're taking something that is, maybe like could be considered a formulaic rap topic, and they're breaking it open by having non sequiturs, cut ins and outs, things like that. And that's something that I put down the rap criticism hat for a while, because I want to be a practitioner, not a theorist. But in the one book that I wrote, Not a Flex, I talked about, at what point are certain ideas, topics, and words as catchy as certain musical motifs? In the sense of like, if you insert a bitch in there, a fuck in there, kill you in there, does that give you the same, like, does it give it the same momentum as an 808, as a hot snare, as a quick, good sample loop? And does that provide more room for like a grace period, or room for weirder things to happen in there? So like when, something is so far off center that, you might be talking about the same conditions that birth violence and drugs and stuff like that, but you're completely flipping the language.
Yeah.
How does, to what, like, the same grace isn't extended by maybe a more average listener to like, oh, I get this, when maybe you still don't. Like you still might not, I don't think you get really what Ghostface saying. He was just kind of fucking around. But people think they get that more than someone else who's not inserting the occasional fuck you, pull the 44 out and stuff like that. I think it's really interesting how certain things are anchor points.
They really are.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. I mean, they're like genre signifiers. Like,
yeah.
It's just like in a Western, put a guy in the white hat, a guy in the black hat. Like, you don't have to waste all this time in the story of saying who's the hero and the villain. You can like get down to business and do whatever you want when those little storytelling things are in there that make you feel, or like when you feel an 808. Okay, I know I'm feeling this particular genre here. I don't have to do much more than that. I can now get down to the business of writing the song.
And I think sometimes it's a trap that some certain rap critics can fall into. And like, it comes with a lot of like racial baggage and stuff, because there can be a very anthropological approach to understanding rap music. And like, I get this, and this is the noble savage talking, or like, this is this person responding to these conditions. And I think it's really, to get out of that linearity and that like, this created this, that can be often, there's that cringe inducing video that was circulating about like someone dissecting Pusha T's verse, and it was like, this means this and this and this. And I was like, just let it be. Let him go.
Let him go. Yeah, no, and I am hyper guilty of this, just in the sense that I was raised on West Coast gangster rap. I was raised on Ice Cube and NWA and stuff like that. So when Ice Cold Bishop drops Generational Curse, I'm so comfortable listening to that album, even though it's very dark and sad. And I had to analyze myself and go, oh, it's because you grew up on this. Like, this is the sounds that you grew up on, and like, you need to investigate that about yourself, right? Like, and so that's, you know, that's a real thing, and that comfort zone is real. But you got me thinking, like, does Common have a nutmeg, and no one even did it? You know what I mean? Did he slip a nutmeg in, and no one even found out? It was like,
I mean, anything can be a nutmeg if you hear it wrong. I
yeah,
mean, one thing I never get tired of is Woods, especially on Twitter, is a very vigilant corrector of his lyrics. Like, and the amount of times people quote bars of his getting like really important words wrong, and are like, this how does he think of this as fire? And then he'll like totally be like, actually, it was this word which changes the entire meaning of this thing that you thought was genius. Like, over and over.
Did this to me. I was quoting like a guest verse he did on Midnight Suns, and instead of angles, it was angles, and it was a Marxism thing. And I was like,
there you go. You got nutmegged.
yeah, no, he did it. He did it to me. But it's a real thing. And Woods is such a historian. Kay knows this. Kay heard a guest verse from Woods and spent the rest of the night researching.
Yeah.
That was the Drew verse. But yeah, it was, yeah.
And then that's a deeper question, is like, what is it about Woods where you can totally misquote him and get major words wrong and still think it's fire, and still maybe it sort of is, maybe maybe it comes back to trust. It's like, if I'm hearing Woods talk, I've heard him say so many incredible things that, like, if he just gets the certain cadence happening and these certain keywords in there, I'm going to be like, oh my God, what?
Well, yeah, I think it is that with Woods, there is kind of a chase for the Holy Grail. Like, Woods is such a historian that if you're a Woods fan, you believe that everything means something, and you can get there. You know, you can really get there, and that's how it is with Ka too, right? Ka people will be confused for a little bit, but they'll be like, "I'm staying here, and I'll get it," because Ka, everything means something.
I think that speaks to both artists share the fact that they blew up late, in the sense that they have a lot to give. And, you know, I think that a lot of their work mirrors examines like processing trauma and processing difficult memories. And so, you know, maybe it might be, you know, wrong of us to think so, but yeah, you know, it's like we can almost figure out what's going on with this person as they go through it, you know. Like, we'll be able to decipher the puzzle along with him, but, you know, it might just be something where it's you know, mirroring how the mind, you know, I think they're masters of mirroring just how the mind deals with information, deals with memories, deals with processing trauma, and like reassembling your cognition. It doesn't have to be that tragic, you know. It's like reassembling your brain around certain things and stuff like that. And I think that's at least like my connector of those two, like the circumstances that lead to their technique. You know,
yeah, right. By the time that they're rapping about it, they've already gone through it. They're not going through it. They've gone through it already. And you know, the time is really in terms of rapping, the time is certainly a luxury in terms of helping the potency of their rapping.
But the craft is that the songs sound like the emotions that they process, and like that's really an interesting thing. Like, they're able to formulate how they deliver it, how they write it, to how that felt, you know, and that's really cool, and not something not everybody can do. Another person I wanted to talk about it was Pink Sifu, just in the sense that Sifu has Negro, which is an album that is incredibly experimental and highly respected, but didn't get the critical love, like, period, right? It just was not, it wasn't graspable. It was so loud, it was so noisy, it was so intense that people kind of dropped out of it. I haven't listened to it that much, but whenever I think about it, I think about how much I love and respect Sifu for making the album. Weird.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really dope. I mean,
So
it's no surprise why it would be left out of the conversation. I mean, it's so confrontational and noisy and like, one thing, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and I kind of take it for granted. Like, I really want my favorite artists to evolve and change their sound. Like, that's something I want, but I forget that most people don't want that. Like, I think on his podcast, Mike Eagle was saying like I can tell you as an artist, like, I don't remember how he put it. Like I guess as an artist trying to make money or something, that fans do not like it when you change at all. And I have the luxury of having very few fans, so it doesn't bother me. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make an album like Negro, I mean, I'm sure he knew what he was doing, and that's part of it. But it kind of makes it all the more satisfying, really, as a listener.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it goes back to like the craftsmanship. Like, you know, if you're, I don't know, like, what's a luxury brand? I don't know, like a Louis Vuitton purse or something.
Yep.
Like when you buy a Louis Vuitton purse, you have certain expectations about what that Louis Vuitton purse is going to be.
Right.
And, you know, and that can happen to a lot of artists, not just rappers, just artists in general. Like, if you develop a luxury brand or you develop a brand, you're going to have to deliver that product every time, because that's what people are buying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Sifu is actually a great example for this conversation in general, because of how like Ensley, like, I can listen to that album and just coast. I mean, like, I remember like that was for the first album of his I heard, and I remember thinking, like, sometimes, like, is he even like technically rapping right now? Like, what?
Right.
He's just sort of like, is he like, and then as I got to know more about Sifu, it's like he has the ability to do incredible things. Like, but he really prioritizes vibes so much. Like, if all he needs to do in a track is go like, like, he'll do that. If that's what he thinks is necessary for that moment.
That's the total other side of the conversation too, is like, you know, like actual speaking, like, do our lyrics understandable? Like, he's saying not very many complicated words, but are the actual words understandable? And he doesn't need them to be. Like, the actual enunciation.
Right.
And that's how I find that I mean, that's a cool other, just that we get into sonics now, you know.
Right. No, it affects it because of
regionalism
is a big part of how this breaks down as well. Because remember, when Future took over the world, people were like, none of this is words. I don't know what any of this is. But Southern cats were like, this shit is genius. And I know what he's saying, and you're missing it. And
I mean, there's a real divide. Like, some people are really intent on everything being understood by as many people as possible. Clearly, like, a lot of chop rappers, like, I mean, my friend, I mean, basically family, Chesky, like, who got me into all this, incredibly fast rapper, and he can chop incredibly fast, and you can understand everything he's saying. But I think there's just as many who don't want to make those concessions, who kind of only want to be understood by real diehards, people who really are, connected to them. And it can be a way of kind of encoding and symbolizing your music, and I think that's beautiful too.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, the notion of encoding your music so that you know it and you know what you're talking about, but a lot of other people don't. I think back to Rhys, like when you talked about Pusha T, right? If you know, you know. Right? I wanted to have a tiger like this guy had a tiger, but you don't know who that guy is. That's cool. Like it's. I've always said it was an important point. Like when I was raising my son, this is an important point of like, I want my son to be around adult creative work that he doesn't understand, because I loved that as a kid. I loved seeing stuff and being like, I don't know what that is, but I want to know. And eventually I will. And it made me kind of chase it. So sometimes those songs stay encoded for 10, 15 years until you decode.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a large discussion to be had that may not fit the contours of this conversation, just of like larger anti-intellectualism at play, and cultural tendency for lack of curiosity, and how oftentimes what is popularized takes the place of deciding for something on one's own, right? If something is played enough, is popular, there's permission to like it, there's permission to begin to understand it. And I think that, hip hop being an ideological force responding to ideology, and a lot of the hip hop that I'm interested, the music that I make, a lot of the music I make, a lot of times is not even, would be very loosely hip hop, honestly. So that spirit of like transgressing, and like defiantly being like, I'm going to think for myself. We could go as deep as you want on that, but I do think, probably, at hip hop's, earliest stage, I think, the stage was being, at hip's earliest moment, the stage was being set for, this kind of anti-intellectualism. That is, like the late 70s, early 80s, the Reagan administration, cuts to education, arts funding and stuff. It's a very interesting how, I think I try not to overthink that, but I sometimes can't help thinking about, I feel really blessed to have like grow up in an environment and with parents who are artists, who gave me the tools to think for myself. Because unfortunately now with Twitter, we can see just how many people like, really are not very smart in real time.
Right.
And not a judgment on people.
It's fine to not be smart. You just don't have to use that ignorance as a springboard to shit on other people.
or they're just so firm in your convictions or your aesthetic choices, aesthetic virtues, I guess, that you can't move. Maybe that's more the thing, is like being unable to move and appreciate something on a level like that. I mean, there's a lot of, I work as a substitute teacher, elementary schools, and the language oftentimes doesn't change from 8-year-olds to 38-year-olds, in the sense of, I don't like that, that's garbage.
Right.
Yep.
And it's like, might not been your shit, but it's put together pretty well. I don't know. So yeah.
Right. No, we've lost a little bit of the ability to respect something that's not ours. If that makes sense, right? Like if you're like, you know what, I only like this, but that's a good version of that. You know? And yeah, you got to be able to pivot. Like I just dropped something today. Like we'll talk about it and recommend it. But
Well, I mean, I think I really do think it's the what is it? You know, like if you don't like something, that's fine. But if you can't tell me why you don't like it and you can't explain why you don't like it, that's the issue. And I think we're getting to a point in our society where the intellectual rigor is not there, where people will tell you what they don't like, but they can't tell you and they won't tell you why they don't like it.
Yeah.
Because if they tell me why, then we can have a conversation. And that conversation about why can really help us both. But if you can't tell me why you don't like it, then there's really that doesn't mean, your opinion doesn't really mean anything. And to the conversation in general.
And we're, in a lot of ways, we're beyond opinion, right? We like, people are making fun of artists that they love to hopefully get more, people, because you see, I thought things changed when there was trolling going on, and then the comments were like, this is some good trolling. Well,
yeah.
I was like, oh shit. Like, it's trolling. This is a devious escapade here. And you're like, salute, this is good deviousness here.
Yeah, the trolling becomes the product itself that people are tuning in for.
I mean, it's irresistible though. It's I mean, to have something that someone poured their passion into, perhaps had, based on years of experience.
Yeah.
And then you get to call it mid, and you have so much power, and you're just saying mid, like boom, like it's. I mean, it's got to feel really good to say stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
I hope to one day. I mean, really, a real barometer. I'm kind of jealous of Rhys. I mean, I really feel like I really want to get that. I'm not really successful until I have that hater there in my comments that are just like constantly trying to shit on me. I don't. That's why I feel like I barely exist yet. I really need someone to actively hate.
I'll put in a good word for you. I'll tell him.
Yeah, pass them off on me.
Honestly, the type of stuff that he comments under, and otherwise, he probably really loves your stuff. So it's
oh, wow. I'll keep trying.
I say that with genuineness. So
yeah,
I'm the guy who's not making it.
Yeah,
it's like Cole. There was a quote from Coltrane where he's talking about. I think a critic asked him, do you feel bad when someone says they don't like your music or that your music's bad? He's like, no, man. As long as I'm getting reaction, that's all I want, good or bad. I want them to hear something, and I want it to make them feel something.
That's a very centered approach. That's a very centered thing. I mean, for me, Child Actor, I remember I never call anything mid or trash or any of that stuff. I keep the artists that I don't like, I keep to myself because
I know you've got a bunch of fake accounts you go out there and troll.
No, I don't have time for fake accounts. I got a lot of doing. But I would say because I've been wrong in public before, and it's a bummer, right? Like I've been wrong and been like, this shit sucks, and then the next year that artist kills it, and I'm writing the review of why I love their new stuff, and I'm like, I'm such a fucking fake.
And then going back and editing the old review.
Awful. I'm like, I wish I had just not done that. And like, so I keep things in until I'm like, I figure out why they're special, because a lot of times you just don't know why yet, But
I do think that the feedback is actually really, Kay is like a really good thing, talking about it, because working in in a fashion that involves a lot of editing and a lot of care. You know, the silence is the silence can really be fucked up because it's like, man, you know, you don't have one thing to say about this. That I think is interesting when you put, you know, a million entendres in one phrase, and then no one has any interpretation, or the passivity or there's just so much passivity that it's, you know, not really hitting. I agree. You know, I mean, yeah, at a certain point, it's like, well, at least I know someone clicked play once. You know, like it's out there. I mean, on a physical level, the waves are traveling outside of my home studio.
Right. It's like they said, like the opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
That's 100%. This has been an awesome discussion. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time, taking the chunks out of your day for this. I wanted to get into some recommendation corner, if everybody's okay with that. Kay, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Closing remarks, anyone? Okay, we'll do recommendation corner. It's stuff I was mentioning earlier. Like, I had never been an SD Knack fan. I had never been like anti. I just was never. It didn't hit me. And there's a new album with V Don that came out called Black. And they're like, this thing is awesome. Levi and Vic is the name on RMPP Discord. And so I wrote, like, I just got addicted to this album, and I was able to write. It's one of my favorite things to write is kind of amending an apology review of, like, I didn't get this person, but I do now. Here's what I meant. And I love writing that stuff because it's so rarely present in music reviews, right? Music reviews are often written from an omniscient standpoint of, like, I know this person and always have, and here's what you need to know. But that's not how anything is, right? So it's coming out this week, and I'm excited to have it out there, and I'm grateful for the people who kept in my ear about how special Knack is. Let's see, what else do I got? Oh, Kay, did you know that Billy Woods dropped the pre-order link with Kenny Siegel?
Oh wow, he's got a project coming.
New single came today.
Yep. 17
Beautiful song. Sam Herring on the chorus.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Chef's kiss.
Yep.
It's one of the busiest album covers that I've ever seen in the history of Woods. It's like a whole thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a breaking tradition.
Yeah, breaking tradition. Absolutely. There was like no words on the cover rule for him, and it's broken. So, yeah. The other thing, go in a different direction. Recommend some music, some heartfelt soul music here. Yaya Bay, Exodus the North Star. Love this. It's a follow-up to last year's Remember Your North Star. It's an EP. Really, really beautiful, really personal, raw stuff. And I love it. I think it's awesome. She's really talented and really introspective. Some people are so introspective that you, like, as an audience member, you're bracing, like, are you okay with saying that? Ooh, and she digs into herself that way. It's really cool. So those are going to be my two. Hey, do you have any recommendations?
So I recently watched the Legacy of Jay Dilla, the documentary on FX and Hulu about Jay Dilla's legacy, obviously. And I really enjoyed that. That gave me appreciation, not only for his craft, but also his legacy, and gave me a really made you think about the the business of music, of making music as well, and how, you know, that impacts an artist and how they live on a day-to-day basis, and their families as well.
That's awesome. I got to check that out now that I'm free of this Wu-Tang show. Oof. What a weight off me. Child actor, what have you been listening?
Well, I've been listening. I put on the Madlib, Mayhem Lauren, DJ Muggs.
Oh yeah.
Some good things on. I mean, I have super high Madlib standards. He's like my number one of all time, so I'm gonna be, you know, extra picky. But there are some. I can't say anything bad about Madlib. I'll just say that there are some moments in here that really remind me why I like Madlib a lot.
What is that called? Is it called Champagne or Champagne?
Champagne for Breakfast.
Champagne for Breakfast.
But it's fun because you can hear, you know, which ones are DJ Muggs, which ones are Madlib, and then there's some that are like you're not sure necessarily. Yeah, that's my flavor of the day in this disposable release cycle. But that's what made me feel good today.
Oof, Muggs and Madlib's Lennon McCartney, you know, just trading off.
It's an odd pairing, honestly, but they have some dark, murky common ground.
Yep, that's true. No, that's I got to come back to that one. It was a lot to digest. But yeah, Rhys, what are you bumping? What are you enjoying?
Musically, definitely been running back the Danny Brown JPEG Mafia tape. The production got me really excited. I mean, Danny Brown's obviously and JPEG are fun on the mic, but the production just reminded me of I don't know, like we're talking about rules. There really is no rules. It sounds really fucked up.
A lot of freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really like smashed and compressed, and even like there's like too much reverb on a lot of things. I really like that. It's just like this. I would never send this to the mastering engineer, but this is amazing. The Live project is cool. Girl, Half Pro. I think that's it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's really dope.
Absolutely.
Really.
Metroid remaster for the Switch is giving me some life too. Yeah, I'm just playing just video games.
Oh, I didn't know we could recommend video games. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But I'm just breaking the rules because I'm trying to be.
There's no rules, baby. There's no rules.
And you know, and then I've only gotten to the first chapters. Will Hagel wrote the Mad Villainy book.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And I did an event for the release at a place in Highland Park, and he gave me a free copy. And so I've been just really digging into the first little bits of that. It's been I don't know, that album is so formative for me. It's cool to his document of it is really great. Been enjoying that literarily.
Yeah.
Are there any surprises in there, or is it just kind of like a loving fan account of it?
There are some details that I think are like the nuggets that I haven't heard before. Can't recall one right now. I'll have to think. I'm a little fried. But yeah.
There's no rules to recommendation recorded, by the way, Child Actor. Last week we had Blacklick on, who was recommending like sleep and hydration. It was awesome. Really.
I can't recommend anything higher than those. So yeah. No, it's been great. I appreciate everybody. We got a lot of stuff coming out. Black Thought, L. Michaels Affairs coming out. Listen to Black Thought, Bend Words. The singles have been amazing. So, some of the people who ordered the vinyl from Big Crown Records already have the album ahead of us. They get the bonus. They get the additional days for digesting this antiquated art form, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody coming on. This has been exactly what I wanted to talk about.
because we need to talk about this kind of stuff. So
Absolutely.
by Rhys Langston, you know, be confounded by the wonderment of child actor, you know, and Venmo Keith Rollins. He's got shit to do.
What will tomorrow bring? What